maybe you can start off. Should the diaspora invest directly in partnership or a fund? Or should they do all? What is your take on it in regards to diaspora?
Sure, I think it depends on the investor strategy. So for some people, that will be that would involve some other dimensions of investment, like impact, job creation. For others, it will be pure financial return. But I think the common denominator among all those approaches would be you have to have a good local intermediary, a local market player, and you have to have a certain risk appetite to do that successfully cross-border. And I would say also that it's really important to understand the time dimension. The asset classes here that are investing are now shifting to, I think, a more, I would call it, suitable model for the realities of the African country markets. So that may not be the typical private equity model. It could be an evergreen model, buy and hold for a while, or there are new models being developed, I think, by some really innovative institutions. So I'll stop there.
Now, Wilmot, I know you do have to leave. If you can just share with us your last remark and just talk to us, what do you think the diaspora can engage in with African business to make sure we solve this? It's a dire problem. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm going to approach this from a different angle. And so I'd love to stay in touch with all my panelists. Thank you again for having me. I do have another call. But I'm going to piggyback on what Frida last said about lowering expectations of the diaspora. I actually think you should raise them. And I'll tell you why. It's really important that we understand that diaspora is not a monolith, right? So we haven't unpacked what we mean by diaspora. And I think that's a different panel, and we probably don't have time for it now. But one thing I will say is I do think the diaspora is rich. I do think the diaspora is ready to engage. I think that richness can't just be measured in financial wealth. It has to be looked at in other ways. For example, I'm African American, and it's undeniable that African Americans build brands, which is why we are so focused on, yes, exports into Africa, but taking great African brands into America. That's really important. But I think the thing that's most important for this to happen is not money, it's not knowledge of markets on their own. It's simply this. I think one important element or segment of the diaspora, which I think is really underserved when it comes to African American engagement. I do salute my sister Taryn King for all of her great work, is this. I think African Americans have to be welcomed here, right? I think that's really important, not just to assume, but to say it. Follow the lead of Ghana, maybe to some extent, that's one model, but I think there are other models, whether it's through special engagement from a standpoint of policy, tourist events that target that community. Do you not think that NBA players who are now expanding into Africa through NBA Africa would ignore Africa if the presidents of the chambers of commerce, presidents of head of states reached out to them and said, "We want you here"? That would happen in an instant. And so I think there has to be a welcome, a karibu, and we have to have that. I know there are tensions that some of our brothers and sisters come from Africa, go into America and get educated, have terrible experiences with African Americans. And so the second dimension of what I'll say is what's needed. And this is a spiritual thing. I think we have to bring this into this conversation. It's more love. We have to have more love for each other as Black people, seeing ourselves as people who are agents, who can drive the growth in Africa and don't have to now answer to anyone for that, and can proudly say, we should be self-autonomous. We have the richness in the earth, but more importantly, the richness in what God has placed in each of us, and a destiny that's yet to be realized. And we have to grab the authority of that and stand in that and possess that, which is why I say the diaspora is rich. So I say to all of you who are on the continent and the diaspora and friends of all of us, that it's in our hands. The power is in our hands. We can do great things, but it's going to take cooperation. We've seen that in the chat. But I want to direct it to this love word, because that is a spiritual, oftentimes seen as emotional force that I think now we need. We have some encouragement through the Black Lives Matter movement, through other things, which, but we needed that before. We need it even greater now before Black Lives Matter movement in terms of the political movement, to how that can be applied economically. And we've seen that, right? What does that look like? That looks like, I'm here in East Africa. Everyone knows that Kenyans are great entrepreneurs, but also I don't think people know that there's a significant Indian population here. It's also very entrepreneurial. And you can learn from them. The self-love there is beginning of, if you look at how dollars are circulated within the Indian community, right? And no one has to defend that. No one has to say that's anti, no one else is accusing them of being anti anything else. But we all know when Black collective empowerment happens, that people feel that that's a threat, that that's something that you have to stand against. And so the division that we have across the world as people of African descent, we can no longer accept. Some of it we inherited, some was imposed upon us, but too much of it is what we settle for. Harambe. I'll close with those words. Thank you so much. And congratulations again on this excellent panel.